Okay, everyone. This is Rangadad. It's not financial advice. It's just the way I'm looking at the market. Might be a little distracted here. I probably shouldn't have put that trade on just then, but yeah. All right. What? Missed a couple of ticks on that one. All right. Bitcoin today has had a pretty good run to the upside. Whether we continue up or not, I think really is down to one thing, and it's the CME gap. And I mentioned this yesterday, or I mentioned this the last couple of days, I think. Interesting that we're sort of bouncing off the 200 EMA here. I'm hoping that move to the downside just then was just to sweep the lows of the range. Because I am looking at a long at the moment. Scalped the pullback on it, but we'll see how we go. We're starting to turn over in terms of volatility. Not to be unexpected when you got a move down that's that quick, but we are ticking up inside the stochastic momentum. Sort of the dead zone, but certainly a move inside that is better for longs, which is good. I should have held my short. I'm going to see how it goes around the VWAP. So I'll just turn CME on. This here is actually probably the first target on another move up. Fuck, I thought this morning I didn't check this chart before I just put that trade on. That's probably not going to be a good trade. Anyway, I'll cover that in a sec. It's good that we've broken above this candle. That is definitely a positive sign. If we close above that, if we pull back in here and we don't, then I would expect a bit more of a pullback. Now, if you remember, one of the scenarios that we've got to keep in mind here is the scenario where we pull up into here, potentially into these EMAs here. So even the 618, so 62K would be, that would pretty much close that gap on CME, would hit the 618 fib on the retrace, and then further moves to the downside. There's a lot of confluence in there with the moving averages and stuff. You'll probably have the mid band of the Gaussian channel in there somewhere as well. Don't necessarily think that it goes to there today. It certainly could. It's been moving pretty massively lately. And look, momentum currently is to the upside. The thing that we just caution on is whether it's got the energy to get there. Looks like Bitcoin's going to play ball for the time being, at least. So, oops. Get that. So we're definitely, this channel is seemingly holding for the time being. The reaction around the 62K mark is going to be very interesting if we get there. But definitely CME is going to be one that I'm going to watch closely today. I think, again, it's all ticking to the upside as well. Decreasing volatility wouldn't be the worst thing here. Increasing would probably be better, just because you'll probably break through that 62, 63K mark. So it's 62,945 technically is the gap. Yeah, it's interesting. CME is trading $300 higher than spot, well, perps at the moment as well. So Bitcoin on the shorter time frames yesterday was just, it was, again, I've said this before, but it seems to be trading more like the general stock market. Some of these rips and stuff, it was, if you're onto it, this was a pretty good W pattern here. Breakout, come back in, confirm, and then move to the upside. That was a significant move to the upside on the 15-minute candle, all done and dusted in an hour. And then we've kind of eked up from there, just ground up. So, and pretty good move last night too in US time zone. So there's a bit of strength there. We need to kind of hold this region, potentially just pull back to the 59,100 for that 800 EMA on the 15-minute. That would be a reasonable spot to actually go on the next leg up. And the reason I think there's potentially another leg up, get rid of them now, is just because we've only had 3 waves so far. I'm not, again, I've said this before, but I'm not a huge Elliott wave person, but generally you do see 3 pumps in a move. So pull back into the 200 EMA on the hourly is perfectly fine. Move up from there would be great. Does that get us to the 62K level? Gets us pretty close. Another interesting confluence there is the 800 EMA on the 1 hour. That's interesting. Vector candle recovery here too on the 1 hour up to 62K. Look, 62K, would it get it done? Not really. Even the low on that is 62,470. So, but look, there's a lot of room to move on stochastic momentum. We do have global liquidity starting to tick back up again. And in general, markets are starting to turn around as well. So don't do what I did yesterday and try and run a freaking short. Spent all day working on that to get it back into the green. That was hard work too. But yeah, look, so at the moment, it looks like potentially one more leg up at least. I'd probably suggest it goes a bit sideways until CME closes and reopens. But today we could get a pretty decent pump. Of course, downside targets, and I want to make sure there is always an opposite trade going on here. Downside targets are pretty obvious when you're looking at the vector candles. So at least into about 58k mark for a pullback would not be unheard of. We are quite overextended from even the 13 EMA there. I think that's a 13 I got on. And this Bollinger Band, which is not your regular Bollingers, typically you're pulling back into them before another move, like another big move to the upside. As you can see here, it sort of broke through, broke away, pulled back into both of those, and then moved to the upside again. So probably sideways again, which sucks because that's my trading day. Probably pretty sideways by the look of that. One thing to note though is on the longer time frames, the RSIs are going to be pretty overextended. Does it matter too much? No, they're in the bullish control zones for sure. Stochastic momentum on the hourly is definitely in the bullish control zone. So there's reasonable potential to go in the next couple of hours, but I think given that New York's closed, it's probably going to be a bit of sideways chop, which on the 15-minute, there is a... Actually, we'll go down to the 5-minute. So the 5 minutes just in this range here. So I'm running along from within this range. Average buy-in, I think somewhere around here. 59,555. Not the best buy-in, but that's why I scalped the short on this candle. It could break down into this area and pick up some of these vector candles before moving higher. Again, I'll probably run a hedge on that if it breaks below this region, because there isn't a lot stopping it until we get down to here. Maybe a little bounce around 58,600. And look, stochastic momentum is the downside, but volatility's just ticking back up. I have to check the settings I got on that volatility. Volatility charts change a lot depending on your look back and your whatever it is, the length of them. So you got to make sure you're looking at something that's relevant to your actual chart that you want, or your trading strategy. At the moment, I'm not sure that it is, because that should be decreasing for my mind. Look, yeah, CCI is dropping, stochastic momentum's dropping, the cyclic RSI channel is dropping down as well. What you kind of want to see is if it holds this range and sorry, this is probably confusing for people that didn't actually write the indicator in, but cyclic RSI sort of is similar to normal RSI, but it has these upper and lower bands, which you can think of as basically a moving 30 and 70 band. So you can see here, obviously, once it dips below that, it sort of starts to get into correction territory. Once you get above that band, it can be pretty positive. What I tend to look for with this is Where's a good example? Like good trades are where the top band is going to be below the 50 level. You're coming off a low as well, so your bottom band's quite low, and it's moving back inside the bands, along with stochastic momentum coming out of bearish control zone. That's a pretty good reversal sign to the upside. Obviously, if my my MACD lines are crossed as well, then all the better. But yeah, I mean, I think yesterday I got faked out by one of these moves to the downside. It looked like it was breaking out to the downside, and that's why I ended up going short and had to cover and recover pretty much all day, which wasn't fun because I had to just flipped it and looked at the longer time frames first, I would have made a heck of a lot more money. Anyway, so we're into the 50 EMA on the 5 minute. If we sort of close below that 5 minute 50 EMA and what is it? Super trend flips, then it'll be looking a bit more bearish, but for the time being, it looks, it still looks like pullbacks will be met with buying demand for the time being. There's potentially one more leg up, then I'll start getting a bit worried. If we go to, let's go to this one. Obviously, we're getting a lot of liquidations to the downside. Still a little bit left above, so up in that 6,600, there's still plenty of liquidations. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I think it might go a bit further sideways, just to build a few more long liquidations in here. Sorry, short liquidations. People will go short from this range. A lot of the shorters would have been sort of wrecked in the last day anyway. So it may come back down. These two areas here are basically the vector candles that we were seeing. So 58,300 and 57,700 are potential pullback areas. It didn't do that at all yesterday. Like the pullbacks were not big at all. This here was just fuckery to try and shake people out. That was just before the start of the US session, I think, or around the start of the US session. But that actually allowed me to manage to get rid of my trade at, I think it was break even or just around that. I was down on the friggin' 1 minute to do that though. Pain in the ass. So yeah, at the moment, still postured to the upside, looking for breaks below. You're looking for when it does break, if it does break the 800 EMA on the 15 minute, you're looking for sort of probably to hit the 50 or thereabouts and then pull back up for a retest. If the retest confirms and pulls back down, then we may be in for a bigger correction. I'd be looking for some support around the 57.5 region. That would still be okay for a potential another leg up, but it's getting to the point now where Bitcoin is getting quite extended, and obviously it can keep going, There's no doubt about that. There's still a lot of liquidity up here. Actually, looking at the weekly is probably better for getting the targets. So 61.5 would not close the gap. 62.8, so into this region here, would close the gap in CME. And if you're looking at, let's do a measure. If you're looking to measure the move, we did measure the move. Yeah, so if you measure it out, let's say there to there, it's probably go a bit further than that, but that's getting pretty close to that gap close, and that's a decent target for another leg up. But when you look at just how extended this is, it looks pretty overextended there with decent pullback, but not as much as you might think there was going to be. So actually, I think that was the other reason I went short, because that was looking like a double top. But and the fast move's normally the fake move. In this case, that was not true. That was definitely the true move. But yeah, it's always handy to come back to the daily, because you can see that, Bitcoin can make significant runs up without much pullback at all. Like this one here, that's a 13% run. From here, maybe 13%, 14% would nearly get you to the gap close, like 61.5. Gap close is about 15%. Maybe. Where is it? It was around 62.8, wasn't it? It's about 16% up from that low of the start of the move. But, this whole run up here from the bottom to the top was 30% as well. So 30% from there only gets us back into that just about to that 618, which is an interesting number. As you'll see, that's pretty much gap close territory. It's 30% run up. Yeah. I think it's all pointing towards, at the moment, especially if this closes above that 200 EMA, that's actually a pretty strong close if it does. It's pointing towards a pull up into the gap close, and then potentially a run down. And that run down will probably show us what Bitcoin plans to do next. If it's an aggressive run down, then look out below. If it's a sort of a pullback across a day or two, just like this sort of thing, and it doesn't move very far, like if we were to have a vector candle or just an aggressive move up and then a pullback halfway through that candle, that's not particularly scary. As you can see here, that still potentially leads to more upside. But we're talking like for Bitcoin to get back to all-time highs on this run. What was all-time high? It was about 74, wasn't it? You're talking a 50% move. That's pretty massive. And for Bitcoin to do that in one hit, yes, it can. Like, obviously, that's a 100% move, nearly 91% move. So, yep, can do that. And that was after a 21% move to the downside. Let's see what this was from top to bottom. 33% move to the downside. it's all doable. But if we go straight for the gap close today, which I'm leaning towards being the case, even though that's a pretty big daily candle for having no retrace, that's, I think, it's probably gonna run out of legs and need a retrace at that stage. So just got to trust the stochastic momentum at the moment. We still haven't got any bullish buy signals on this indicator yet either, but it looks like it's probably going to get some soon. I guess when you've got such a dip to the downside, it makes it hard for that particular indicator. I'm going to have a quick look at, WIF was the one that I was trading. That's what was fucking me. Benefit of that was it had good moves that I could pick up decent runs on. Let's just change that to Bitcoin. I mean, that's a good sweep of the demand zone there. It's probably not going to fire a buy signal until we're out of that supply zone, I would think. And that'll be a break of structure as well. Yeah. Might actually pay a bit more attention to CC's indicator today. That was a big volume there. So CME. Okay. That's a sell-off at the end of the day for CME. People are closing their longs. Or a short to cover or something, but typically it's people selling their longs. So yeah, stuck in this range, need a clear signal. It's still green at the moment. Like, if we get decent volume come through on a green candle, that's probably is going to signal a buy. Yeah, that's what we're pretty well waiting for today, is just to see where this resolves. Bullish on that indicator as well. Looks like the target there is 61,500, but yeah, I think interesting. Yeah, 15 minutes. I'm going to be trying to wait for confirmations on the 15-minute today, I think. Might even close this out and wait for an actual break of that, because it's going to be a decent run up if it does. I think I'm in profit now. Yeah, fuck all, but wait a little bit. See if it can get me into a bit more profit just to cover fees and stuff. That's about, sorry, probably need to cover the actual markets. 3% run up on the NAS. Holy dooly. Let's go to the daily. That's interesting. The NAS looks like it's reclaimed our channel on a 3% move. Not huge volume. It's still above the moving average, so I guess consider it decent still, given that these were so massive. So that's a pretty good turnaround. Quick look at the skew. The skew is still to the upside. Markets are generally looking okay. The panic seems to have subsided. CTAs have started buying back in again. Only in small amounts, like it hasn't been a big V-shaped recovery on CTA, which are commodity trade advisors for those who weren't aware. And they tend to be momentum buyers and sellers, so they capitulated in the drop. So it will take them a little bit of time to get back into the market, but hopefully the market's made a decent move by that stage. So XLI is back in well and truly in this range. That's looking positive. See if we can actually do a proper breakout this time. One of the US banks said that they think the Japanese carry trade is only about 75% unwound, which wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. I think I heard numbers that were similar to that from other sources. So we may see, again, it may just be a run up and then the carry trade unwinds fully. We come back down a little bit and then we go to the upside, which would be perfectly fine, perfectly normal moves in this sort of market. So what you're looking for here is potentially pull up, come back down, retest that, and then move to the upside. SPY. Like to see a breakout of that zone there. Proper breakout. SPY doesn't look as confident as the NAS, which, as we said the other day, the NAS tends to lead the SPY when you're coming out of a decent correction. So something to keep on your radar. RSP is going with it, which is good. Equal weight. NAS, be good if it could clear that 200 EMA, but it's certainly good volume there, actually. Certainly not time to panic on that yet. Stochastic momentum's crossing to the upside as well on high volatility, but it is an extended move to the downside. So that would suggest at least a retrace into key moving averages. Where are we? DAX looks like it wants to recover as well. Let's close that gap. Didn't bounce off it, so that's a good sign. Stochastic momentum's to the upside. So again, we're at least looking at pullbacks into key moving averages. Where it goes from there, probably a correction again, like a little bounce to the downside and then further up if we go further up. Nikkei had a good day. It actually stopped me out in the what am I sitting at now? I set some trades yesterday. Yeah, no, I fucked myself. I set some trades in the morning and just didn't look at it again, and obviously picked the wrong direction. That looks like it hit all my stops. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Hit all my stops yesterday. That's freaking shit. Anyway, I didn't have massive trades on there. That's why I set it and forget it. But just not able to have the patience for these markets when it's not their main trading times through my day. It's bad enough with Bitcoin. It's a volatile asset. I'll see what happens. I'll see if I can find some decent levels and take some trades, but they just move so slowly. It'll probably just be the Japanese market, to be honest. Though gold had a decent move, didn't it? Most of it overnight, though. Let's just go to a daily. Yeah, most of that move is. I thought I longed gold. Must have got stopped out before it went in my direction. That's unfortunate. Yeah, silver I definitely had a long on. Must have stopped me out. What a bastard. Anyway, see what happens. Interesting that oil seems to be finding that base where we thought it would. It's got a lot of headwind. Actually, oil I longed into the top of this vector as well. I got stopped out on everything, and it's all this move to the bloody downside just at the start of that candle there would have stopped me out. I should have looked at it on the daily, gone wider. Anyway, nat gas is up as well. So the fact that oil's recovering as well is kind of, I mean, it's not a great thing for the overall economy, but it shows you there's some confidence in the markets that it is going to turn around. All right. Was there anything else I wanted to cover? Oh, yield curve is still refusing to close with the uninversion. High yield is still up. That is good. Not up a hell of a lot today, but up is good. Copper looks like it did want that, or very much close to that 800 EMA, which I suspect if we do an SMA on that. Oh, it's actually below the 800 SMA. There you go. That's interesting. Need to recover that. 405 is going to be pretty key. But again, these are clouds, these are regions, so kind of just eked back into the bottom of this one. Copper's been pretty oversold, so it wouldn't be unheard of to have a decent bounce here, especially if the market does actually recover properly. As we said, gold, that's a decent pump to the upside. Silver, good pump. And this is why I swapped some of my gold for silver in my retirement fund. Silver just moves bigger percentage-wise. So if gold does go on a run to its all-time highs, you're only talking a few percent, but silver's got 20% in it. And look, I would expect if gold's breaking out above here, which is like 5% run, then silver's going to be getting pretty close to that all-time high, especially if copper's recovering as well, because silver's kind of a mix. It's kind of a precious metal that people want to hold for its actual long-term value, but it's also used in industry. So it's chops around a little bit more than gold, but can have better returns on the trades. Dixie is bouncing off the 800. Where does it go from here? Probably up into at least you'd be looking for bears around. Where's my horizontal line? You're looking for bears to come in around that level, potentially up into the 200, into the bottom of the Gaussian channel. There's a 50 EMA in there as well. That'd be a decent pullback after all the fuckery that went on with Japanese yen. And that looks like it's turning around at the moment as well. So you're looking for probably the Japanese yen to come back into around that level. That's a pretty strong spot for a bounce. Okay. Yeah, around the 0.5, potentially back into this level, into the 618. I know Forex kind of likes the 618 level a bit more than Bitcoin. It's more the 0.5 level. Yeah, Bitcoin's just bouncing around this freaking range, isn't it? Sorry, I was just looking at my trade, see if I want to run a short just to cover it. I'll see how it goes on the next candle. Yeah, overextended to the upside. Probably going to have volatility contraction, which you would expect the price to come back down into here somewhere. It is still in the bullish control zone, but I think it's coming out of that. Looking at that run down. Aussie dollar had a decent bounce off its lows. That concerns me a little bit. But yeah, stochastic momentum to the upside is always good. Although it is just a contracting volatility. What you want to see is actually the volatility to bounce to the upside and this to be sort of, well, stochastic momentum can be in the bullish control zone. That's completely fine. And you're probably going to find some resistance around that 800 EMA again. Interesting that we did bounce off that. We ended up getting there. I didn't cover that, but yeah, that's percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average has dropped. What's the IWM doing? That's interesting. Definitely a little bit concerning that that's dropped while everything seems to be going up. Hasn't dropped much really in terms of the difference between open and close of the previous day and close of the today, but interesting nonetheless. Why is Nvidia red? Nvidia's a bit of an inside day there. That could lead to a bit of downside. Although it's up in after hours, but look at that. Arc still inside that zone. AMD's recovering. I didn't save my thing yesterday, did I? It's annoying. Sorry if you think there's no structure to this. It is literally just me looking at the markets before the start of the day to see what I want to trade. ABB. I'm thinking I got to move somewhere with a better time zone for the US. So it's just the moves are so much nicer. Airbnb. What else? No, that'll do. So Airbnb looks like it's tried to find a base there. That looks like a bargain. Hey, I covered it yesterday, but that looks like it's a bargain at the moment. Price to earnings ratio is pretty competitive with other. Just go to more info. See, price to sales is low on Super Micro. The price to earnings 24.76. If we go to Airbnb, that looks cheap. Hey, price to sales is a fair bit higher, but they've obviously got better margins. Which does that change in the future with global financial meltdown? Possibly. But I know hotels are freaking expensive at the moment, so people may just choose Airbnb instead. Yeah, I reckon especially in the short term, Airbnb, I think, is a bargain at the moment. Most of them are bargains, to be honest. AMD, maybe not. That is actually looking like a potential meltdown. Well, not cataclysmic, but you'd be looking for it to do something like this, come back into this region here. What's its financials look like? Holy Jesus. Price to earnings of 155x. Wowee, what's Nvidia? Nvidia's only 57. Why does everyone like AMD? Wow. Where's its debt? See, it's nowhere near as good a company. No wonder it's freaking tanking. Yeah, I'd expect that to be coming down. A bounce and then maybe another leg down. It's looking overvalued at the moment. I mean, it's got good cash flow, but that debt is significant. And obviously it's in a war with Nvidia, like it's a competitor to both Intel and Nvidia. They need something pretty major to pull them out of that, to justify that 155x. Yeah. So yeah, Meta 25. That's probably reasonably cheap for Meta. Price to sales. Yeah, Amazon. What's its debt like? Holy Jesus. That's a massive debt. As long as it can service it, that's okay, but I would have expected their sales to be dropping too. Maybe. 72x on 3M. A lot of debt in that company. They are paying dividends though, so we've covered all them. Apple, so 31. I mean, that's more like it. It's got decent cash sitting there. Got big free cash flow. Yes, it's got a lot of debt, but it shouldn't have trouble paying that off, really. And it is bringing it down over time. So, yeah. Like you look at all those compared to AMD, I don't, yeah. I mean, AMD has a decent amount of cash as well. Its cash is actually higher than its debt, so it's not too bad, I guess. But yeah, that just seems ridiculous. Quick look at the Aussie market. That's a pretty bullish candle on yesterday. Let's just go to the screen. Yeah, that's doing all right. Again, pullback should be met with buying demand, so potentially a pullback into the bullish run like this, somewhere between 7738 and 7713. Bitcoin's looking like it wants to be a pain in my ass. Where is it? Low volume. It is to the downside. I'm actually going to short that. Fuck it. Wait for it to pull back into the 1 minute a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good vector candle recovery there. But I don't think it's necessarily going to break to lows. If it does, I'll be looking for a bounce around 58,376. And then what was that? An 8% day on Bitcoin without a pullback? I guess, yeah. That's my bad. I should have known that that was probably going to happen, hey? I should probably find spots to even reverse that position. At least for the short term. But yeah, pullbacks into here even would be a good spot. That is going to provide a fair bit of support there. 200 EMA in the 5 minute. Bottom of this vector candle here. If we go much further than that, there's actually not a lot of vectors on the 5 minute. I think there is one on the 15 minute, but yeah, I think that there's actually a pretty good pullback spot. And then if for a run up to the high 62s from there, let's just see. To close that gap, you're looking at another 8% day, top to bottom anyway. If that is how it plays out. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at today. Sort of pullbacks to be met with buyers' demand. All right, that's about it. I'll catch you guys later.